When I sold Cottage Link Rental Management in 2022, we were running at 85% direct bookings. That didn't happen by accident. We'd been at it for 20 years, booking direct long before Airbnb was even a concept. For most property managers, though, direct booking remains one of the hardest things to build. Guests arrive through the OTAs, they stay, they leave, and you're left with almost nothing you can use to bring them back. That's the gap today's sponsor, StayFi, is designed to close. And I'll be telling you more about them later in the episode. This is the Vacation Rental Success Podcast, keeping you up to date with news, views, information and resources on this rapidly changing short-term rental business. I'm your host, Heather Bayer, and with 25 years of experience in this industry, I'm making sure you know what's hot, what's not, what's new, and what will help make your business a success. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. This is your host, Heather Bayer, and as ever, I'm super excited to be back with you once again. And I am really looking forward to sharing this discussion with you because when I met my guest today, Scale with AI, I immediately thought, we have got to do this again. Because, first, a confession, my guest today was last on this show in 2021. And he came on to talk about Instagram. That was 4 years ago. And I will tell you now, on the record, I still don't do Instagram. I remember sitting down with Thibaut Masson from Price Labs when he was working with Booking.com in Amsterdam. And I think probably 10 years ago. And we sat down and he talked to me about Instagram and said, it's easy, you can do this thing. And I still haven't. It's been sitting on my list for years. I've asked people to help me with it. I've had every intention of getting to it. And somewhere in my brain, there is a blocker on that platform I have never managed to shift. So when I tell you I'm bringing back the man known across this industry as the social media hotelier, you'll understand there's a certain irony in that. And I fully expect him to hold me to account. So that man is Paul Anderson. Many of you will know Paul from his years running Sandfield Guesthouse, alongside building his reputation as one of the sharpest voices on social media strategy for accommodation businesses. And since we last spoke on this show, a lot has changed for Paul. He's now moved into consultancy, and his work now sits right at the intersection of the things I care most about: how operators communicate, how they protect their brand voice, and how they bring AI into that work without losing command of it. And there's more. Paul recently got commissioned as an officer in the Royal Air Force, having gone through officer training at Cranwell. And he's now stationed at RAF Brighton. Now, for those of you who don't know my history, that actually did stop me when I heard about it, because my husband ended his RAF career at Brighton. He served his final 6 months there before we moved to Canada. And before that, we were stationed there for a number of years, so we lived in that area for so long. So Paul and I have rather more in common than just short-term rentals and social media, and you'll probably hear a little more of that coming through in this conversation. So we reconnected in person last month, as I said, at Scale with AI in Brighton, and he was also giving a presentation which I really enjoyed. So in this episode, we'll cover that a little bit because we're going to get into the question I think matters most right now. Not whether AI should be involved in your business, because Paul makes the case that there is very few areas of a short-term rental operation that wouldn't benefit from it. The real question is how well you brief it and where the human must remain in command. So Paul's developed a framework for this he calls a 10-80-10 protocol, and he's walking me through exactly what it is, what it looks like in practice, and particularly around the areas where the stakes are the highest: creative work, guest communication, our brand voice, and our marketing. And of course, we'll revisit that 2021 conversation and ask whether the core of good social media strategy still holds. And we'll also dig into the gap that Paul sees every day in his consultancy work between the operators who are using AI and the ones who just think they are. So settle in, enjoy this conversation with Paul Anderson.
It just flows. It's lovely, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's just a conversation, because I sometimes think the best conversations we have are the ones that start before you hit record.
Yes, often. Oh, quick question. I find my natural instinct is to look at your lovely face here.
Oh, I do the same
Would you
thing.
prefer me to try and concentrate on camera? No, you're not bothered? Okay.
I'm not bothered, not at all. So for those of you who have just tuned in, you just caught us at the end of the conversation that we were having before I pressed record, and then I pressed record, and here we are still continuing that conversation. So I haven't edited that out. It's just part of the thing, because I think this is going to be a great discussion with my guest, Paul Anderson, the social media hotelier. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining me.
Heather, thank you for having me back. For your audience's benefit, my first ever podcast was with Heather, and there'll be 5 years this December. So it's awesome to go full circle and come right back to where I am. Mercifully, I've done lots of podcasts since. So
And you also have your own?
No, not yet, but I'm working on it, actually. I've almost got the AI sorted out to help me achieve that. However, I'm far more comfortable now, and I know what the setup is, and I can click the buttons that I need to at the right time and actually arrive on time, because the first time there were a couple of hiccups, but mercifully we managed to overcome them all.
I will be putting the recording of that first one in the show notes for anyone who wants to look.
Yeah, I would like, actually, on my way to work later, back to Brighton tonight, I'm going to listen to that back. Yeah, it was awesome. In my memory, it was.
Yeah, I don't mind people listening back 5 years, 6 years. It's when they go back 10 years, 11 years and say, I just listened to your first podcast. Really? Please don't do that.
No, but it's really good that you've kept them there. So certainly on Instagram, I've always been a big believer of never getting rid of content. So I can see what my journey was 7 years ago now for my guest house. And I look back and I cringe, but what it helps to is sharp progress, because every time you do something, you put another rep in, and look at you now, Heather.
Yes, 600 something.
Wow.
674, right, I think.
That's awesome.
Every time I get to the end of 100, we get to 400 and then 500 and 600. Shall I stop? And I think I'm going to stop at 1,000.
If you get to 1,000, the number 1,000 is genuinely the easiest, because you can just do a greatest hits, best of.
Do you know, I tried to do that. I tried to do a greatest hits, and I went to AI and I said, can you pull out the best quotes from my most listened to podcasts? And it came up with all these quotes. And I thought, fantastic. Until I looked at them closely and I thought, she didn't say that. He didn't say that. And then I realised it just hallucinated the whole thing. And anyway, for those of you listening, you probably want a little bit more information on who I'm talking to today.
It's a good start.
Say hello to Paul Anderson. As I said, social media hotelier, but there's much more to Paul than that. And we're going to be talking about that. Paul was last with us in 2021, talking about Instagram. I just said in the intro, Paul, that I first started talking about Instagram, in fact, to Thibaut Masson from Price Labs.
Oh, yes.
He was working for Booking.com then, but I think it was about 10 years ago. And I remember being in a hotel in Amsterdam, and we sat together on a couch in the lobby, and he said, okay, I'm going to teach you all about Instagram. You'll be able to go off and just get going. And we sat there for an hour. And so that was probably 2015 or 16.
Very, very early days then.
Yeah, and there I was in 2021 asking you exactly the same thing, and I still haven't done it. But when you came on the show last, you were running a guest house. And now you're not running a guest house. So give us a bit of a backstory on where you've been, what you've done, and where you are today.
When we last spoke, I was very much fledgling. I was just getting momentum, just getting off the ground. And what I'd started to do, I'd been using Instagram for my guest house with a lot of success. And what I noticed was that many of my followers were other guest houses and short-term rental businesses and holiday cottages and so on and so forth. And what I realized was that they were never going to stay with my guest house because they were busy running their own businesses. They just one or two maybe. And I'd amassed this large following. And so what I started to do was try and ask people, why are you following my account? And the overwhelming response was, because you ignore what all the gurus say and you're clearly successful at it and you clearly enjoy it. So we're basically here to copy you. And I've always been a believer that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So I was fine with that. But what I then did was I carved it out into another Instagram profile called the Social Media Hotelier. And I was just telling people what I was doing. I'm doing this because of that. I'm doing this because of that. And it just snowballed, which meant eventually I ended up talking to your lovely self. Since then, what's happened? So 3 things I think have shifted roughly at about the same time. Since then, I've moved from designing strategy and being the guy who teaches people about reels, the tips, the hack of the day, which buttons to press, and these sorts of things. And I've moved much more into strategy. I have a little stable of one-on-one clients. I have a group coaching program. So that's digital trainings with a group live session alongside it. And then essentially what I've tried to achieve is like we are today. So I'm very passionate about what I do and I love talking shop. And I think I remember saying in 2021, my wife thinks I'm fairly obsessed with it. And that hasn't changed. So if I start talking about short-term rentals or marketing or social media marketing or AI when I'm in the pub with my friends, by the time I've gone to get the round and come back to the table, the place is cleared. So opportunities to talk shop, and whether that's live on stage at the Short Stay Summit or for people like Damien Sheridan at Scale or your good self or dropping into podcasts and panels and stuff. I do that, one, because it gives me some sense of profile, fine, but also because I really enjoy talking shop with people in the same vertical. So the 3 things that have shifted, I went all in on the coaching. So my wife, who is a very senior accountant in the charity sector, said, you need to have a war chest. You need to demonstrate not massive, but regular income. And I achieved both of those when it was announced that my squadron, so I've been in the reserves coming up for 9 years, my squadron wanted to recruit internally for a flight commander, which meant a commission. And they all landed on the same day. So I got through my high season in October, which is the beginning of the academic year because of the students. And we closed in October 24. And then this May, so 15, 18 months later, I graduated Royal Air Force College Cranwell as an officer. So that would be the second thing. And the third thing that's been the backdrop is about 4 years ago, we were all given weapons of mass execution in the form of AI, where we could start using it. And it was public domain, really. So I started using Fathom in order that I could give reports and transcripts to my one-on-one coaching clients. And what that's turned into over time is analysis of now more than 350 hours of recorded coaching calls, group calls, digital training programs. And from that body of work, I'm starting to build out a protocol and mega prompts that I'm giving away. And so I think, particularly having shut the guest house, my perspective has shifted. So I'm no longer inside the one property and just dealing with a couple of clients and wrestling with my own algorithm. What am I going to do? But I'm now seeing across dozens and dozens of operators. And that exposure has given me a broader perspective, but I've actually gone more strategic. So within the Royal Air Force, I was very tactical. I was a mover, then I was a driver, I was doing, and now I'm in a strategic position. And it's the same thing with my teaching and my coaching and what excites me. So I'm far more into the marketing fundamentals that underpin everything, really, across the digital landscape, whether that's words on hero, images, blogs, social media. So less about production tactic, far more about strategic command, really.
So we're going to go on in a bit and talk about strategy and tactics and things. But it's interesting you say when you shut down the guest house and moved into coaching consulting, it mirrors what I did when I shut down Cottage Link Rental Management. We sold that in 2022 and went into, can't believe it's 4 years ago. This is all very scary. Time moves way too fast.
It does,
right now. But yeah, so there's lots of parallels here. But talking strategy, tactics, I sat in your session at Scale with AI in Brighton.
Right, which is the first place we actually met in 3D Technicolor, which was super cool. I was, there's Heather, got to go say hi, quick. Brilliant.
I love these places. I love to go to conferences because you do that with so many people. Sidi Mittal, I'd been in touch with very briefly. Oh, no, I've actually first met her at VR Nation in Denver.
She's a ball of energy, is she not?
She's amazing. And then Ella Meziborski from AutoHost, I'd met her on my podcast. And she's only in Toronto, so she's just down the road from me.
Okay.
But we met in person in Brighton, which was...
That's cool. What I always find interesting is you finally understand, I don't know why it triggers me, but how tall people are. I'm thinking of one person in particular. I had no idea that he was any taller than me, and I'm not sure. And then people like Sid, you go, oh, good morning. But it really helps shape that 3D technical impression of people. Brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so what were we talking about in
Scale AI?
Yeah. What did you talk about?
So I was talking, forget the specific title of it, but it was something along the lines of AI hasn't broken marketing. All it's done is it has exposed those who are never marketing anyway.
But that's really interesting because I hadn't seen that talk that way. And maybe you said it, maybe I wasn't listening.
It was blazing across the massive screen on that now.
I wasn't on my phone, I promise.
I know you were front row and you were laughing at all of my jokes, which was very kind and generous of you. I think you might have been the only one though.
Yeah, so say that piece again.
So AI didn't break marketing. It merely exposed who wasn't really marketing anyway.
Yeah, that's such a powerful statement because it gets people stopping and thinking about what is marketing. We all say, I'm doing marketing, but really don't understand it. So, okay, so that was emblazoned at the top and I missed it.
That was emblazoned at the top. So as we scratch our way through it, what I've certainly noticed is there is, and particularly if you look at the stats, there is a lot more content being published, number one. Number two, a lot of it is trite. And that's a polite word for it. It's beige, it's bland. As soon as you see it, you go, I know a human didn't write that. And I think that spidey sense that people get is only going to get increasingly fine-tuned. And I forget who, it was a long time ago, I saw an Instagram post that said, posting content isn't marketing. Publishing blogs isn't marketing. Having a website isn't marketing. And that's what triggered it. And it was a long way back. I was like, actually, I really need to understand what is at the root of marketing. And so combine that with certainly, and I know the algorithms have changed across the board now, where follower count isn't an indicator to the algorithms to push more reach. So tiny creators can go viral now. Whereas before it was particularly difficult. There was always an obsession with more followers, more likes, more content. You've got to post every day. You've got to have 3 stories every day. You need 3 reels per week, blah, 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 blah. So there's always been this obsession with volume. I had a client join my group coaching program and she had 28,000 followers for 2 cottages in the Cotswolds. And I thought, what does she need me for? And then I checked myself. Like, no, followers isn't necessarily money. What she'd done was she'd run a series of giveaways and all of her followers were only interested in the giveaway. So when the giveaway stopped, people didn't unfollow. And so what would happen in very loose terms would be if you had 100 followers and 10 people engage with that content, then your engagement rate was 10%. If you still had those 10 people engaged, but you had 100,000 followers, then your engagement rate drops. And the algorithm's first presumption will be, if your followers don't even like it, why would I share it with somebody else? So that combination of factors, then when you introduce AI, which can produce content volume and at speed, that old thinking of, I need to be producing content every day, I need followers, I need likes, is in many respects what the AI will be working towards as well, because it's mathematically programmed to predict the next most likely word. And so there's this drive towards the middle. And then Louise Booth asked me to step in. I was already due to speak at Scale UK in Manchester, and she asked me to drop into a panel group. And some of the conversation was around the beigification of marketing. And so I took a step back and I thought, what am I actually teaching my students? And the first thing is to understand uniquely who you want staying in your property. And then it's to recognize that the whole point of marketing in any vertical is to move people from state A to state B. So for us, it would be, I want or I need to visit a particular area. You want to move them to a position where they say, I want to stay there. Very specific. And the way to do that is to approach marketing with 2 kind of notional ideas or frames in the back of one's head. The first thing is that when you publish content to the likes of Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is, most people assume that they're standing on a stage and they're broadcasting. And so I'm forever telling clients, would you please stop when you're doing talking head videos, say, hi, everybody, because there's only ever one person on the other side of the screen, ordinarily. It might be something crazy and it gets a gang of kids around it, but it's one person. And we need to connect to that person. And so once we've understood uniquely who that perfect potential guest is, and there are mechanisms for dealing with a variety of perfect potential guests. Some people call them ideal guest avatars. There's a whole world of phrases. I think the generic phrase is ideal client persona. I would say perfect potential guest because it's who we choose. Once we've understood them and we understand them not just demographically, but psychographically in terms of what will move them, what will hold them back from hitting book now, what will persuade, I nearly said coerce, persuade people to move down that funnel and down that buyer journey, then what we can do is we can cut through the noise that AI is massively amplifying now and create signal. Certainly, when I was running my guest house, I would far prefer to have just 52 followers who all wanted to book a week with me than to have 52,000 who just thought I was funny.
Can I just stop you just a sec?
I'm just giving the whole thing again.
I'm just going back to...
There's a lot to unpack, isn't there?
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to stop you a sec and just go back to... Because we talked about an AI and content.
Yes.
We talked about personas and avatars. Now, I do encourage my clients and people I'm talking to create their avatars, their ideal client persona, whether it's owners or whether it's guests, and use AI for that. Really say, okay, take some sort of voice to text, whatever you're going to use, and then talk about the people that you love coming to your place, the people that walk in and say, this is fantastic. They don't ever complain. They love what you're doing, but make it very specific. What do they love?
Yes.
What are they liking? And then just dump that voice text into AI.
Yes.
Now, would you agree with that?
Massively. So much so that I built 2 mega prompts. The first one is about perfect potential guests. And when I sent it out to my email list, it was very much, it will interview. It's actually more interrogate because people will go, they'll say things like, my ideal guest is between 30 and 60 years old. And I did have a one-on-one client who loved it when I came back and said, so does that mean that she's 30 when she's out with the girls and 60 when she's at home? We've got to dial these in. And so I've always had pushback with my clients, but they've always broken through and then the benefits have come from it. But really dialing it down. So it's a series of questions and they ask all types of things like, how many cars do they have? Where do they do the grocery shopping? Even what color hair is it? So that you can visualize the individual and then create value for them. And that's all about, if you hit a record button, if you use Whisperflow, if you're in that end of things, or just the microphone button at the bottom of ChatG and talk, even if you're conflicted and even if you're confused or you're contradicting yourself or what you're saying is contrary to what you said before, that richness and that texture can be absorbed by AI, particularly if it's given a very specific brief. And I've often treated how to define a perfect potential guest a little bit like if I was, and I think we spoke about this, if I sent you a paint by numbers box, Heather, and this is great, and you open it up, and the first color was orange, so you did the orange bits, and then you did the black bits, and then you did the white bits, and then you went for the blue. But me being cheap, I bought one from a secondhand shop and all the other colors had dried up. Then you might understand that it's a tiger and it's walking. But what you wouldn't understand is whether it's in an urban environment, if it's in a jungle, if it's going into a cave. If it's going into the cave, is it because it's raining or because that's where its dinner went? And it's all of those little tiny dots that make up that picture that paints 1,000 words. So the more granular and the more detail you can give it, the better. So absolutely hit record and just talk to it, or take the free prompts and just answer the questions.
That's great. And I love that expression, beigification. I'm stealing that one.
And it's bland, isn't it? It's just, blur. If you can swap another business's name for yours in a piece of content because AI has written it, then it's not going to speak to anybody. And I know this particularly because when I was running, of the 5 buildings, it was guest house, me, private house, guest house. And we were all pretty much of a much. And the difference was, and it took a marketing expert to lead me down this path. The difference was it was me because I grew up here. And that was the only difference. But in order to get to that, it took a large amount of introspection and asking questions and getting to that detail and asking my guests, why do you stay here? Why don't you stay next door? It's just as good and it's cheaper. Oh, because it hasn't got you, so it's not just as good.
Something I keep hearing in every direct booking conversation right now is that chasing the first booking away from Airbnb or Vrbo is a losing fight. That guest found you through the platform. The shift worth making, though, is this. Stop trying to win the first stay direct. Just focus on winning the second one. And that's exactly what StayFi does. It's a branded Wi-Fi system for your properties. And when a guest connects, so does everyone else in their group. StayFi captures that contact information automatically right there in the Wi-Fi login. There's no separate outreach required. From there, it handles the follow-up, the post-date emails, a return offer, a nudge around their travel anniversary, all aimed at bringing that guest back through your own site next time, commission-free. You already got them through the door. StayFi helps you keep them. Go to the show notes for more details. Let's go back to where we were before I interrupted you. We remember that, don't we? So we're talking about strategy, tactics,
Yeah.
your talk at scale, and you've developed a protocol for thinking about this too.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's a Royal Air Force thing, but I'm very much one for acronyms and mnemonics and such. And I've always been a fan of the 80-20 Pareto, where 20% of what you do should drive or will drive 80% of the output. And so all I've done is I've taken 80-20 and I've taken 10 from the 20 and I've put it at the front end. So 10, 80, 10. And the amplification of or the exposure of people who were not originally marketing anyway, they're just churning stuff out, is that first 10% where we understand who do we want? Who are we pleased to see another email booking come from if it's online or pick up the phone? Bear in mind, I did come from a day when I used to take inquiries from a fax. Like, oh, that's my computer beeping. Sorry, I don't know how to turn that off. Is understand and give the AI a very specific brief. The military briefing format is a very good one, and I very much modeled what I built off it, and we call it SMERLAC. It's a chunky acronym, but it's the situation. What is the situation that you're in? So I have 3 holiday cottages. They happen to be in the Scottish Highlands. What is the mission? What are you trying to achieve? And you might want more followers, or you might want people to click the link and come to your direct booking website. What is the mission we're trying to achieve? E, execution. What do you want your second in command or your digital second in command to actually do specifically? So we got SME. R is for resources. So we give it resources. We tell it who our perfect potential guest is. We get it to scrape our website or our reviews or articles and PR stuff. So it's got those resources. And then L is limitations. Like, what do we not want it to do? And the final 2, I think, particularly for people who are a bit nervous or they feel like they're a bit behind with AI, the last 2 are really important. The first one is ask questions. So one of my favorite lines that I always put at the end of most of my prompts is, please ask me clarifying questions in order that you have a 95% understanding of what you're being asked. Because what that then does is it exposes the gaps that the AI will be guessing about, things that you haven't told it. And then, as we know, or as many will know, the longer a chat goes on or the more information we give it, we lose what's called the context window. So if we think of it as a column, it will remember that much. And once it gets there, then it drags down and it forgets what was up at the top. So when you feel it drifting, then you do as we do in the military. We call it pose, pause, pound. So you ask it a question and you check that it's remembered. And if it hasn't, then you ask it to summarize and you move on. So the first 10% was built around that. Once you've told it who your perfect potential guest is, and you've told it about your business and it's matched, these are the services that you offer, these are your values that will move that perfect potential guest from the state A to state B. Then you can ask it to start to begin to think about creating content. And that's where the 80 comes in. It does the heavy lifting. We do take advantage of the volume it can create. There seems to be a lot of people who are not doing that first 10%. And not briefing properly. They're saying things like, write me 10 captions about my holiday cottage. It's not really a brief, it's more of a wish. But the last 10% is also very important. As we said at the beginning, people are becoming tuned into AI generated content, particularly if it's text. Images, they're starting to blur the lines now. Authenticity from a graphical point of view is becoming increasingly easy to replicate. But from a text way, we need to almost do a commander's inspection at the back end. So we look at it and we go, you're using lots of, the classic is M dashes. You're using lots of, it's not this, it's that. Everything is working in threes. Whenever you've used a random day, it's always a Tuesday. So have you ever spotted that one? It's always a Tuesday.
I have not spotted that.
I guarantee you. I bet you a regular glass of posh champagne next time I see you. If you type in to ChatGPT or Claude or wherever it is, give me a random day, it will come out with a Tuesday.
Awesome.
Because it's not identified with anything. Monday is Monday blues. Tuesday is random. Wednesday is hump day. Thursday, certainly when I was a student, is the build up to the weekend. Friday is the weekend's nearly here. Saturday is fun time. Sunday is rest day. Monday is Monday blues again. So Tuesday it will always go to Tuesday. So going back and inspecting the output before we go, yeah, that's fine, publish, is absolutely key. Another acronym, an OODA loop. You ever heard of an OODA loop?
I have not.
OODA loop.
So
It was invented by a hurricane pilot, or he came up with it, a hurricane pilot during the Battle of Britain. And he was an ace. He dealt with more of the enemy aircraft than anyone else in the entire Air Force. And he came up with this structure in order to communicate how he did that. And it was observe, orient, decide, and act. And he would just go round and round. He'd see where he was, where he needed to go. He'd make a decision. He'd act on it and move. So iterating on it. So going back all the way back to the beginning and iterating on what you've already told the AI, but also iterating on what it's giving you. And you can start to introduce things like your idiolect. So your idiolect, the very easy way to do it would be to look at text messages you send to your family and your best friends. What terms of phrases do only you use? I'm going to keep going military because I've been drawing these parallels for months.
Well, yeah, I also want you to tell your asparagus field story.
Yeah, that's a good one, that one. What was I going to say?
Idiolect.
Idiolect. I was away with the Air Force and I called my wife and she asked me a question and I said to her, stand by, because I was thinking about the answer, we're going to look at it. And she said to me, stand by what? And you have some connection to the armed forces, so you know.
Yeah, I've heard stand by.
She hasn't done that at all.
Yeah,
so
never thought about that.
that's a phrase that I would use. And I say words like gash. And I said to her earlier, because it's 33 degrees here. So in North American money, it's what, 91, 92? It's proper redders. What are you talking about? I'm like, it's red hot. But so using that type of language to personalize it, particularly when we recognize that when we're creating content, particularly, we're creating for one person on the other side of the screen.
When I was trying to personalize what I was outputting, and I was put in a lot of old blog posts, and then I came across a manuscript of my book, that one up there, that I wrote back in 2005.
Wow.
And I had the entire, a lot of it was handwritten at that time.
Yeah.
And I photocopied it and I uploaded that. That is my voice. There is nobody else, no proofreading, no editing. It was my voice. I uploaded the entire book.
Cool.
And it changed everything that the AI was outputting.
Excellent. What did you use to churn through that volume of data before the days of Fable 5 and all the rest of it?
I just uploaded it to ChatGPT.
Cool. Nice.
It worked. But we're Fable 5. Let's get off this call because I've only got 4 days left.
I've got stuff whirring away in the background now. And I'm like, no, just take care of it. Just take care of it. Because these 350 hours, we really want to get into the meter.
I know. I'm trying to think.
It's too big. It's too much.
Anyway, for those who have no clue what we're talking about, we will probably come back at a later date and talk about things like sonnet and opus and haiku and Fable 5.
And ChatGPT 5.6 coming out in a few days.
Yes. So that's a little geek talk we'll revisit.
Right.
But yes, I love that. That is, tell it who you are, do your stuff, and then check.
Yeah, and also back to your perfect potential guest, your ideal guest avatar thing. As you're talking to it, you are giving it your tone and your texture. It's not recording the audio, it's transcribing it, but it will give it a sense of the rhythm and when it pauses and your ums and your ers and these things. And it will very much synthesize that into its own output.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am guilty as everybody else. I always dictate now. So if I'm doing a LinkedIn post, I'm dictating it.
Yeah.
And then I will probably put it through some AI to sharpen it up. I don't know, take out all my ums and ahs and messes.
Yeah.
But yesterday I just got on my soapbox about us pages. And I typed it out. Or I spoke it. I just spoke it and I said, what I'd seen was garbage. Corporate garbage.
Nice.
And I said, I'm not here to apologise. I'll probably ruffle a few feathers, but this is it. And that post has got way more engagement than anything else I've done recently that might have gone through AI.
Because you hadn't filtered it through AI and what you were saying.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, people are so nice. They never come back to me.
No, I'd be inclined strongly to agree with you, because what AI has certainly done is it's commoditized corporate polish. And it's commoditized so much, it's essentially free. But as soon as you scratch that veneer, everything is hollow behind it. And so the 108010 protocol is about actually, if you think of it as like a ping pong ball, actually turning it into something more akin to a golf ball, by actually putting the meat in it. And this is the reason why you can hit a golf ball further than you can hit a ping pong, because it's substantive, it's substantial, it's got weight to it. And without weight, we can never hope to elicit any sense of emotion in anyone who's receiving our content. And it might be that they're outraged. They go, no, my about page was designed by AI and it's amazing. And then you and I and Neely Khan come and go, no, it's a whole load of rubbish. Oh no, it doesn't say anything. It says everything is luxury, but that's a subjective, all of that stuff. And so, yeah, that's a really cool example. Geeking out slightly, I can highly recommend Whisperflow.
Oh, I've been using Whisperflow for about 6 months now.
Oh, good.
And yes,
slightly competitive with how many words per minute people are achieving.
I know.
I look at this and say,
you're in the top 5%. Yes.
Yeah, of course I am, because no one else on the planet's really using it.
I know it is. I tell everybody it's not hugely expensive. If you keep recommending it to other people, they'll keep giving you free months. People start taking it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, always a plug for Whisperflow. Love it.
Soon to become sponsors of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast.
Wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't that be good? No, loving our sponsors at the moment. Stayfi. They are the best. Okay, where will we go? You were going to tell the asparagus story, the asparagus field story, because I thought that just tied into everything in your presentation.
Yeah, so I've got to be careful. I'm fairly sure it's Sun Tzu, Art of War. And the line is along the lines of tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And strategy without tactics is a slow route to success. But it's the first part that's really key. It's very easy to be busy. And that's the tactic. So the tactics would be ask AI to write 10 captions about your holiday cottage. Then it would spit out 10 captions. And without close inspection, they go, yeah, it's fine. It's fairly polished. It's tidy. It's grammatically spot on. And that's just creating more noise. It's back to the signal that cuts through the noise. And so when I was at Royal Air Force College Cranwell, lots of ambiguity, lack of information, very tired, like I went running 24, 30 hours without sleep, having to make decisions under pressure. And I was in charge of 7 or 8 troops, peers, and I had to get us to a particular part of the training ground and secure a helicopter landing site. It was all fictional. And everything outside of our boundaries is what the Royal Air Force would call shock-infested custard. So you don't get there, and most of it is commercial field. And they don't clearly want people in full gear and weapon systems, even though it's got blanks in it and all the rest of it running around Cranwell Town, because it tends to freak people out a little bit. And everyone was tired. It was raining. I knew I had to move everybody quickly. I needed to get a fresh change of socks, needed to get their heads down. And so I had a quick look around, I had a quick look at Matt. All right, we're going that way. And I led them, and then we had a tail point. Charlie would come to the front and all the rest of it. And it went really well, really well. When we got to the site, I was high-fiving quietly because we were moving silently, fist bump and all that. We all got bedded in, set the perimeter defense up, set up a watch, so 2 of us were always looking out and everyone else was having a kit. And then the sun came up. It must have been about, what time of year was that? February time. So it would have been about 6 o'clock in the morning or so. And it was misty. And I looked over and there was all these little reaches. No, it would have been later. It would have been May time. And there's all these little sticks of asparagus. I'm in the wrong place. And there's a misclear. I looked up and there was this lady with a carrier bag and a dog, and she was clearly pinching asparagus. And she looked over and see all these guys and girls with rifles sitting in the mud with the helmets, full camo, bushes sticking out their heads and all the rest of it. She looked at me and I looked at her and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be the boss here. So I just said, morning, would you like a cup of tea? Because someone did brew in the back door. And it was a classic RAF moment. Oh, good, would you like a cup of tea? Sort of thing. She took one look at me and just hightailed it out the other way. And so that's a very good example where we got very busy and we executed absolutely perfectly. But we did it in completely the wrong direction. And I was on the receiving end of a very strong one-way conversation. And my CO, my commanding officer, then nearly wet herself laughing because she couldn't contain herself and just how silly the story was. Because, of course, the military then had to go and try and find this lady to reassure her that there weren't people running around with weapon systems. So there was a bit of a fallout. And that was when she reminded me of the Sun Tzu quote, which you often see in classrooms in various RAF colleges. And
so what would you have done? What would you have done differently?
I would have slowed down. I would have realized that slow is smooth is fast. I would have taken my time over it. I would have made sure that I was absolutely certain. I would have run it past my 2IC to check. I think we're going over there. Instead of going, I know where we're going, off we go, tally-ho, trucks away and all that. And I would have spent more time absorbing the information that I did have. So tactically, I would have taken my 2IC and said, can you get them busy doing something so they feel like we're making progress? I just need to go and take a knee and just make sure I've got this solid, and I'll run it past you. And as a result, we still could have deployed the tactics, but strategically we would have achieved our aims.
I have to say that this is one of the stories when you're 30 years on, Paul, when you've got your grandchildren around, that is the story that they're going to want to hear over and over again. And I know this.
I tell it live on stage and I tell it on podcasts. I'm very much a believer that tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Because my husband he didn't go to Cromwell. He was commissioned at 17, straight out of school, which is what they did back in the old days.
Back in the 1900s.
But he still went through all the commissioning, went through his commissioning course, and he has similar stories and entertains the grandchildren all the time with those stories. And now I'm going to listen to his stories a bit closer. And for those of you who don't know, Phil is the one that edits this podcast, so he's actually listening to it.
You can chuck in an extra one, Phil. I bet he wasn't. I have to call him sir because he wasn't a junior officer for long. But it was much harder for the youngsters than it was for the older reserves. Particularly because they're usually fresh out of uni. And I was surprised to hear that for many of them, it was the first time away from home and they were away for a full 6-month stretch because they'd never really had to fend for themselves. They've always had their parents around. Whereas my lot, the average age was 36, 37. Had jobs, families, dogs, kids, houses and all of that. They knew how to make a cup of tea and knew it was important to keep your feet dry and brush your teeth twice a day and all of that stuff. But it was humbling. Deeply humbling experience. Really was.
Congratulations, anyway, for being commissioned.
I won't get my sword out. You can have a look at it when you come and visit me next.
Excuse me. So let's wrap this up. Just talk about the gaps between the people who are using AI in their work and those who just think they are. Because I come across this all the time. I'd love to hear your take on it.
The people who think they're using AI, I would put them in the same category. So it's a really broad question to ask me. Specifically to creating marketing material and creating creative. Those who think they're using AI ordinarily have had the mindset of, AI is the big new thing. I need to have AI in my business. And they will also often fall into a bucket where what they've done is they've moved from a VA, who is a social media manager, who is actually just creating really bad graphics that no one can see and putting URLs into captions and all of those mistakes, basically glorified graphic designers. And they go, I'm going to replace you with AI, without having thought long and hard about. It's back to that exposing people who were never really marketing. They just go, I've got a social media manager, it's done, tick, move on. And now it's AI, tick, move on. And it comes down to a lack of briefing. In fact, I'm having my windows painted, and the old painter decorator, I've known him decades now, said, "Oh, my daughter uses AI, but she's really struggling with it." And I said, "What problem is she trying to solve?" And he explained, and I said, "What you need to ask her is, what is she giving the AI in order to achieve this?" And it's project management and it's calculations. And she's asking questions like, if I'm going to take 40 cameras to Tottenham Hotspur, how much cable do I need? But she's not telling it what type of cameras, where they need to be, where the power is. So there's a gap between people who think that posting content is marketing, that writing blogs is marketing, that being published in a magazine is marketing. It's potentially profile, but it's not marketing because it's not designed to move people from A to B. And so I think the people who think, I've forgotten your original question. I've gone off.
Yeah, the gap between those who are using it and those who think they are.
So in contrast, the people who are using it well are ordinarily tend to be people who are trying to solve for a problem, or they are people who have spent the time, who have created standard operating procedures that they can then give to an AI. They're people who will treat AI as an employee that needs training. And they're also people who iterate. One of my favorite prompts is when AI is giving me something I'm happy, I'll then take that output, put it into another chat and say, if I wanted to create this in one shot, what would I prompt it? So people who are learning and developing their own techniques, whilst at the same time training AI on. Now, the difference, of course, between a new employee and AI is that until you run out of tokens or credits, AI will work the whole time. But also it will remember what you told it. And people will tend to forget. But if you haven't told them in the first instance, then the AI has to guess because it can't read your mind. It just can't. And it has no perception of reality. So you need to give it the window into the reality. I think that's the biggest distinction between people who are using it well and people who are not. You can solve a problem and accelerate the solution or improve the solution. Brilliant. If you're just using it because you want volume for marketing or because AI is an AI business, I think you're wasting your time.
Yeah, and that was a core of what I was talking about at Scale.
Yes, it was, actually. Thank you for reminding me.
It was doing that work before the magic begins. You just jump in and say, and you can say it's magic because you ask it a question or you ask it to produce some content. Seconds later, you've got a full blog post.
Yeah, and I think,
but that's vanilla. It's beige. It doesn't.
It's beige. It's bland. It doesn't do anything. It's polished.
But
Can
if
I
you
use slightly off color language?
Of course.
A polished turd is still a turd, even if you roll it in glitter.
That's a good one.
It is. It's just, yeah. It's Tish back with my boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also, I was going to say something. It's gone now. Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, and because that's what I just try and push this all the time. Do the work first, and the magic happens later. Don't do the work, and you might feel it's magic, but it's not actually going to benefit you.
No, and it's just you've just reminded me what I was going to say, is that there is a lot of talk now of people losing skills because they're leaning too heavily into AI. So when I think about how I create content, each week I will sit down and I will write, not for the coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, a newsletter. And they're notoriously long. And people always say, oh, you're going to get a better open rate. No, it's fine. I've got stuff to say. I'm going to say it. So I will write that. And I'll tend to do it. I have structures and formats. Then do it without AI. And then I get AI to review it. And then I take those notes and I'll write my own thing. And then from that, I will then create shorter form content that I publish before it to lead people along that path. And then I give them the big hit at the end. I don't use it much to sell. Use a couple of links. If you're interested, you can have a look at this. Fine. And I do it that way because I love writing and I love researching and I love reading around my area of expertise and seeing whether my experience would kind of use my experience to challenge what my ideas are. And if I reverse that process and said something like, write me a blog or a newsletter on how Instagram works and how hosts and property managers can leverage it, over time, I would potentially still be quite good at editing, but I would not be any good at writing. I wouldn't be good at using copywriting principles like problem, agitate, solution. I would just lose that. And so I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You can lean into it, but if you don't already know your craft, let's call it craft, if you don't know your craft, then you can't tell AI what your craft is and how to do it. And it's the same with standard operating procedures. It's the same with automating things. If you don't know what the section of the dance are, then you don't have a dancing partner. You have someone who's left-footed. All the metaphors and...
I know. I love it. I love it. If you had one thing to say, as we close down here, if you had one thing to say to listeners who've gone through this amazingly good conversation, because I've really enjoyed it.
Me too.
And they want to take one thing out of action, what would it be?
Find a problem in your business, bottleneck or a constraint, that you think you could delegate to a person. And then ask AI, using the structure I mentioned before, the situations, the mission, the execution of that, ask AI how AI can solve for that problem.
Love it. Yeah, I love that acronym. So
SMERLAC, SMERLAC.
Yeah.
With the audience, situation, mission, execution, resources, limitation. Get them to ask you questions for clarification and then check understand.
Love it. I'm going to be following that. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, it's been so good to see you to come back again. And always the opportunity to talk shop. It's been an absolute privilege. Thank you, Heather.
I know you come off a night shift and you've had this time
back
for me.
I love it.
And then going back soon, because I forget, I'm at 10 in the morning, so you are further on.
I am coming up for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll be back on station for 18:30. Very much, I think your husband shared this because I'm very much one that a day out of green is a day wasted. With my clients. But it's nice. It affords me lots of opportunity when things are quiet in the night and sit and write, and that's what I'll be doing for next week on Tuesday.
Okay, I've got to get on your email newsletter list.
I sent Jam the links. If you could put them in the show notes, that would be fantastic. Everyone can find links to them on my Instagram, which is at the Social Media Hotelier. If you don't use Instagram, same at LinkedIn, same as Twitter. They're all exactly the same everywhere. Except for everyone don't have different usernames. Yeah, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for joining me. That was such a great conversation. You know what stayed with me most is the line that Paul brought back from the scale stage that I must have missed. I definitely wasn't on my phone when he was talking about it, but I've got it now. AI hasn't broken marketing. It's exposed the people who were never really marketing in the first place. I love that. That is just such a simple point, but it changes everything. The magic doesn't happen when you ask AI to write 10 captions for a post. It happens in the work you do first, knowing exactly who you're talking to and giving AI a proper brief instead of a wish. And then that last 10%. And that 10-80-10 approach and his SMERLAC framework are things that I'm going to be following now. They're going to be ingrained in everything I do. Although I do this to a certain degree now, but that framework just gives you a framework. That's what a framework is, right? So anyway, you'll find links to Paul's newsletter and everything else we mentioned in the show notes. Please go follow him. Certainly, if you're looking at marketing your vacation rental, then he does need to be in your inbox. Because he's in mine. He's at the Social Media Hotelier everywhere. So thank you for listening. I'll be with you again next week. Always an absolute pleasure to know that you're listening. It's been a pleasure as ever being with you. If there's anything you'd like to comment on, then join the conversation on the show notes for the episode at vacationrentalformula.com. We'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to being with you again next week.